Wouldn't be a first show without first show glitches.
It's live, folks. Anything can happen.
Right. Here we go.
That he was a budding star in the making. 2. Ohtani, right center field, and deep, and gone!
Offensive line, second down and 3. Big hole. Edwards-Helaire will take it to...
Under 5 minutes to go now. Arvidson's got an open man. Simpsons is in!
Here comes Moses. Here comes the quarterback, Burrow. Looking for a block, and he got it up in the front by Hopkins into the end zone. Touchdown!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your boy, the Renegade. And thank you for tuning in to another episode, or with Changing the Game. This is the new one. Sorry about the Devil's Advocate theme up front, but hey, we're working on that now. Sorry we had a couple of glitches. So joining me today, we have Rocco from the Sports Angle. What's going on, Mr. Rocco? How we doing?
It's going pretty well. Just coming on, talking sports with all of you, and it's going to be a great time.
Outstanding. And then we got Mr. James in the house. What's good, Mr. James?
What's going on? I'm ready. I've been hyped for this all week. A lot of big stuff coming.
Oh, man, and we got a lot to talk about in sports, but yeah, first of all, we just want to go on ahead and try to get to know everybody here. So, Mr. Rocco, before we get started, it's a pleasure having you on, being here to be able to talk sports and, just basically talk shop. Appreciate you for having us. Let us know what's going on with the Sports Angle.
Of course, the Sports Angle is live Monday to Friday, every single day at 8 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Mountain, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern. I go over the biggest topics in sports and try to give you an angle you have not heard before. We talk mainly baseball and basketball, but we do cover other sports if something big happens in their respective sport. Olympics going on right now, fun to watch, so stay tuned for that. And we're going to do our preview show for the football season starting in August. So Sports Angle, and go to sportsangle.com and read all the articles we have on there.
Outstanding, sir. And I was on that show. Man, we had a blast. I really appreciate being there. Thanks for having me. Love to be a guest on it again at some point in time, in the future. Hey, we did. We really, it was a really good conversation that we had. And James, what you got, man? What's going on with you?
Nothing. Dipping my toe back into the sports world. I was doing pro wrestling for a little bit, doing a lot of production for that. So it's been a while since I've done sports talk, and I'm ready. We got a crazy NFL season coming post-COVID. Let's see pre-post. Let's see where we're at with that we're in isolation kind of. So we got stuff going. I'm hyped. Let's go.
Right. All right.
I'm a Browns fan. I'm hyped. Let's go.
All right. So, just recently, congratulations, first of all, to the Milwaukee Bucks for winning the NBA championship. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, let me tell you, he did it in dramatic fashion. He dispelled basically all rumors and all doubts about, just being one of the greats in the sport right now. I'm not going to put him in the GOAT conversation just yet because, he's still got a long way to go. So we'll see how that works out. But he is one of the greats today. My man dropped 50 and he got 17 rebounds? On top of him dropping 50 in a closeout game. And you couldn't get no more clutch than that. And he handled everything with such grace even afterwards. He's staying humble. And he made a quote, actually, man, that I really love to hear. He said, I would rather stay in Milwaukee and we did it the right way versus going to a super team and winning 3 championships that basically can't be legitimized. And, you know, I couldn't agree more. And he won my heart over. I mean, what you got on these finals, Rocco?
Well, I'm going to give my comparison. And yes, I have said this before on the Sports Angle, but I'll definitely use it again. This season, Milwaukee Bucks was the 2011 Dallas Mavericks all over again. That 2011 Dallas Mavericks team, Dirk Nowitzki, he never left. He was loyal. He stayed with that team. Even when they had really bad years, when he first was getting started, he stayed because he wanted to be a Dallas Maverick. He wanted to win a championship with Dallas. Giannis is the same way. Giannis could have left last year. A lot of people made that assumption that he was going to leave, go to Golden State, go to Miami. He didn't. He stayed in Milwaukee because he wanted to win a championship in Milwaukee. Also, people tend to forget from that 2011 Mavericks team, they went out and got a point guard in Jason Kidd, a veteran point guard who made a big difference. What did Milwaukee do? They went out and got a veteran point guard in Drew Holiday, who made a big difference offensively and defensively in this playoff. And on top of that, they had a center as a veteran in Brook Lopez. Did Dallas have the same in 2011? Yes, they did in Tyson Chandler. So this 2011 Mavericks team and the 2021 Bucks team are more alike than most people realize. So props to Giannis, top 25 player of all time, understanding his resume as we speak. Not going to put him in the GOAT conversation yet, but he's built a real solid career in the NBA. James, over to you.
I like the fact that you brought up those Mavericks, but let's not forget for Milwaukee, they had Middleton. A lot of people forget about him. He was putting up numbers with Giannis to help. And let's be honest, Dallas had that same guy with J.J. Barea and Jason Terry. Somebody that could produce when the big stars were kind of lacking thereof. And the MVP for Milwaukee was Chris Paul. Them turnovers.
But Chris Paul, before you go, I'm going to say this.
I will say one more thing.
Go ahead.
PJ Tucker was what Sean Marion was with Dallas as well. I was forgetting who PJ Tucker reminded me of. Sean Marion, then he was a real solid power forward and had good defensive presence. PJ Tucker, same thing.
You know what? And you're right. I think Chris Paul was his worst enemy. And you know, I think he legitimized all of the controversy about them, people saying, "Oh, well, he's a choke artist." I think he legitimized that. I think, you know, none of us can really argue with that anymore, because when it came down time, you know, for clutch plays and everything else, I mean, he threw away the ball. You know, and that's pretty much what he did. And well, hey, what can we say to the fans now that when they say, "Oh, Chris Paul's a choke artist"? I can't say anything but, well, hey, you're probably right about that. Well,
look at the teams that he's been on in the finals, like in their respective finals. Like you have the Clippers. That whole team at one point should have won a championship with the talent they had on that team, but Chris Paul was attached to it. Well, other players made that team what they were, but let's be honest, Chris Paul was turning the ball over late in those series when they needed him the most.
Yeah, true.
And with Houston, and with the Houston Rockets, people forget they were one game away from beating those Golden State Warriors that everyone said was unstoppable and unbeatable. And what happened? Chris Paul unfortunately got injured, and Houston blew the series away. To me, that was the defining moment of Chris Paul, getting injured when it mattered the most. And I support the Clippers, and I will say that it is definitely true. That last playoff series, you had Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Paul Pierce, JJ Redick. You haven't had Grant Hill on his last legs. The Clippers had talent, but a lot of people blamed it on Doc Rivers at the time. But with hindsight, I believe it was Chris Paul and Doc Rivers that had a part in it.
Yeah, that's true. And I think at the end of the day, him and Doc Rivers just couldn't get along. But I mean, do you?
I mean, it happens.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, this whole finals, I think, changed the landscape of the NBA. It's making us look more like,
I agree.
It changed the landscape of the NBA, and I think it's going to do that further because now Chris Paul is more so looking at everything like, hey, should I actually stay in Phoenix? Do you think he should stay in Phoenix? I heard Boston just offered him $200 million.
I'm going to say no because the Boston Celtics want to build around Jason Tatum. They want Jaylen Brown. They got rid of Kemba Walker for a reason. Gotten rid of Gordon Hayward for a reason. They want to add a star at the guard position to help out Jason Tatum. Chris Paul would make perfect sense. I even tried to make an argument for Damian Lillard in the past, but they'd have to give up Jaylen Brown in order to make any Damian Lillard trade work, and Boston simply won't do that.
Facts.
So I say Chris Paul, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum would be best for business in Boston.
James, what you got?
I think Boston to go to that. Chris Paul, you might as well stay where you are. I think Boston goes youth. Because that's what we've seen in the playoffs was youth. You had Trey down in Atlanta. Giannis is still young. You've showed in the playoffs. Booker. We have Luka coming with Dallas. They're eventually going to be a playoff team. Chris Paul, find a place. You are kind of like that player that is still holding on to those glory days. Like, he's not the 6th, the 7th, maybe your 8th man. He might come out and give you 6 assists when your starters need rest, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if somebody's willing to pay you, take your money.
Facts.
And plus, isn't he a big board member in the NBA PA right now?
That he is.
He's the president. Yeah.
So he could walk away and still be okay, still be a part of the game. Or does he end up where everybody else wants to go, out to Los Angeles with the Lakers? Where he would have been if the league didn't void his New Orleans Pelicans trade.
Well, it does make sense because, I mean, you think about that and then you think about Damian Lillard. There's a big rumor going around about Damian Lillard to the Warriors. Think they'll give up Wiggins for him? Because I can't see him giving up really anybody else. Definitely not Stephen Curry. And definitely not Klay Thompson.
Well, we know what they're going to give up. As unfortunate as it is to get a prime state like Damian Lillard, James Wiseman, their 2nd overall pick last year, he'd be on that block. The 7th and 14th overall pick, that would be enticing. And for contract purposes, Andrew Wiggins or Kent Bazemore. Because the Warriors don't have to unload Curry or Thompson, but James Wiseman would be a casualty of getting Damian Lillard. Let's face it, the Portland Trail Blazers would want young talent back in a Damian Lillard trade. They want multiple picks. Golden State has both of those. So, in a perfect scenario, if I had to lay it out for you, you would have James Wiseman, the 7th and the 14th overall pick, and to make the cap work, Andrew Wiggins would go to Portland, Damian Lillard would show up, and the Warriors would have what they should have had with D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry 2 years ago, which is a 3-headed monster at the guard position.
Oh, my.
But to make that interesting, does a third team slide in with that Portland deal? So maybe there's a little bit more reshuffle going on, because let's be honest, we have seen those 3-team deals where some big trade deals have been made where franchises are changed.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Golden State would set something like that up.
Yeah, but who would you
if they want Lillard that bad?
Right, but who would you send to Portland that Portland could actually use? Because I've been saying it all along. Portland really has been lacking a big man, a dominant center who can actually play the position because they've had some decent power forwards. It's just that
maybe that's where that third team comes in.
Okay, all right.
I'll give you a third team. How about the Miami Heat? The Miami Heat have a stockpile of young perimeter players and players that they could use, and they also have draft picks as well. So if Miami gets something in return from Portland, I'm saying maybe a Zach Collins, just to put that out there. So you have Portland, Golden State, Miami, three-way deal, and it makes sense.
Oh. Or how about, something from the Lakers and, in some sort of deal to try to get Andre Drummond.
There's been so many Laker rumors that I've seen. I've seen DeRozan.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Like, there's so many Laker moves. You throw a pen, you can hit a player in the NBA that's going to be rumored to go to the Lakers if their contract's up right now.
Yeah, you think so?
Let's be honest.
Yeah, true.
Am I wrong, Rocco?
No, you're not wrong, but let's be honest.
The Lakers are going to make a run.
Wait, but we know who's going to go to the Lakers. Westbrook. We all know that Westbrook is going to be the guy that LeBron James and Anthony Davis is going to team up with next year. The Lakers organization is going to convince themselves that Russell Westbrook, even though he didn't work in Houston, even though he had a falling out in Oklahoma City, and even though chemistry-wise Bradley Beal was more productive in Washington, they will convince themselves that, yes, Russell Westbrook would fit with LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the Lakers. So what would they do? They will execute a trade, send Kuzma, Schroeder, Horton Tucker, multiple first-round picks to get Russell Westbrook. Like, I see it coming from a mile away.
But do you do that knowing that some of these players that you have on the Lakers team, how many years has LeBron had? Let's be honest.
He wants to play until he is 40 because Bronny will be in the NBA by then.
That's what I figure. He either wants to play with his son or against his son in the NBA at least probably 1 year, I would say, give or take. Based on how many draft picks you give away, is it worth selling your farm for players that are going to be gone, and at the end of it, you have to rebuild that Lakers establishment because while he's there, you can't really do much because you gave everything away.
Oh, my.
I mean, it's not... You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I mean, I got
And I'll admit I'm a LeBron hater. I'll admit it. I'll 100% admit I'm a LeBron hater, but I got my moment. Dirk put him down in Miami. I got my moment. But I don't think with a lot of these players are getting older that LeBron's recruiting sells 4 years, 4 years of draft picks, he can come back and bite you.
Well, I think that's, I think there's a lot of possibilities that can happen with the NBA free agency and what's really going on. I mean, and the last thing we got is what's going on with this Cade Cunningham. This Cade Cunningham deal. Detroit drafts Cade Cunningham, and there's a couple of teams that are actually throwing their hat in the ring for a trade. What you got, Rocco?
The Detroit Pistons and the Houston Rockets, there have been reports and multiple sources have come out saying that the Houston Rockets are willing to trade multiple first-round picks to move up one spot to go get their face of the franchise in Cade Cunningham. The Detroit Pistons would receive, from what I've heard, 4 first-round picks in return for Houston to just move up one spot. Now, I will say this. I don't care who you are. If you can receive not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 first-round picks in an NBA draft, you do it. It's similar to the NFL draft. When the Tennessee Titans got too good of an offer to trade that number 1 overall pick, when I think Carson Wentz or Jared Goff was going to be the number 1 pick that year, they did it because they got so many draft picks in return.
Right.
The Rams did the same thing when they traded the Redskins pick when it was RG3 back in 2012. When you get an offer that's too good to refuse, you don't refuse it.
Facts.
So if the reports are true that Detroit would get all of those picks in order for Houston to trade up one pick, hey, the consolation is Evan Mobley. And Isaiah Stewart and Evan Mobley would be an excellent 1-2 combination and one of the best big men duos in the NBA. So I will say pull the trigger, Detroit. Trade that pick to Houston, take that draft capital, and rebuild the franchise the right way.
Okay. Hey, and I'm a piggyback off that too. And you're right, even besides all of that, I mean, they still have Jeremy Grant. They still have a very sharp shooting Sadiq Bey. Jeremy Grant's a young player. He's on the Olympic team right now. And Sadiq Bey, he's going into his sophomore season. And he broke the rookie record for three-pointers last year. Let's not forget about that. I mean, no, they didn't win, but, I think they are maybe a star away from actually being a great team. Personally, if I were Detroit, I'd get greedy. Golden State at one point in time, was asking to trade that first-round pick, and I'd have been like, hey, give me Klay Thompson. That's what I would have said. Just do a trade straight up. That first round pick for Klay Thompson. And maybe some draft capital. Otherwise no deal. But I would have definitely got Klay Thompson. Because personally, without Klay Thompson, that Golden State engine does not run. I mean, what you got on that?
Sputters.
Yeah, it'll sputter.
I'm out on the NBA. I gave you guys all I had.
All right, what you got? Anything else, Rock?
I will say with the NBA draft is going to be 5 days away. I understand Golden State wants to trade 7 and 14. We've already heard about the possibility with Damian Lillard. But I want to talk about the Houston Rockets for a split second because the Dallas Mavericks, there's been multiple reports that the Dallas Mavericks are looking to trade up so they can get more help for Luka Doncic. So, hear me out on this. What if the Dallas Mavericks call up their in-state rival and call up Houston and go get the number 2 overall pick, draft Evan Mobley, so you have a big man up top, and then you have Luka running the perimeter? I believe Dallas would have a well-built team if you do make that trade. Kristaps Porzingis would be pretty much expendable if you make that trade to go up to 2.
You know what?
Porzingis would have to be part of it. Porzingis would have to be a part of that trade. And me and the Renegade has been talking about this before. Porzingis doesn't understand that he has to be a role player on that Dallas team. And he does not want to be a role player when he is healthy. At this point, he's missed a lot of games in his career. You got to be the role player. He doesn't want to do that. So I believe if you can get something for him, especially trading up in the draft, you do it to help Luka get you a championship again. And I believe Dirk's going to be a part of the team in some kind of form, fashion. And you want him around when you're bringing in a young big man. So Dirk can kind of help him work as a big man.
Facts. All right. So, fellas, with that, we are going to move on to our next topic here. We got the Cleveland Indians, the baseball team formerly known as the Cleveland Indians. We're going to do a little Prince out here. They have decided to change their name due to the political correctness or incorrectness, if you will, of the nickname Indians, and they're changing their name to the Cleveland Guardians. It's drawn a lot of controversy. And, I have mixed feelings about this one, but, we'll save that for later. What you got, Rock?
I feel like the Anaheim Angels should sue them for copyright infringement.
Oh, wow. Why is that?
Because if you've seen the logo where it has the wings, where it has the wings that look like a G coming out of the baseball, it looks so remarkably similar to the Angels logos from the late 90s, early 2000s. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, they get the reference. Like, it's so much copyright infringement, it's actually scary. But more importantly, I love how the D-I-A-N-S is still there. They just took out the I-N and added a GR. I mean, it's really lazy. It's just really shameful. Most people are going to wear the Chief Wahoo to games anyway.
Right.
There are going to be people who are going to wear that Block C, which, by the way, why don't you just keep the Block C and just keep... To me, it's a cluster. That's all it is.
It's a clusterfuck, eh?
It's a clusterfuck.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
So,
agreed.
As a person that lives in Ohio, I saw this logo and I was like, y'all couldn't do a contest to get something better. Like, I'm pretty sure a 5-6-year-old could have gave you something better. But on top of that, it looks like a girls softball team logo or a generic like Madden create a team logo.
Oh, wow.
Like on video games, like, oh, here's a generic logo. You can name it whatever you want. It has no lettering in it, so you can do what you want with it. We got the Guardians.
Look, the concept was trash.
Come on, I would have rather had the spiders. The spiders, I would have rather had.
I mean, personally,
I would rather have.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if they just went on ahead and went to Canva.com and put together some shit.
It does look like it's like the old Microsoft Paint kind of stuff, like clip art. Right. Like, take a little bit of this, take a little bit of this. Let's blend it together. The Guardians.
I mean,
but Disney, what about Disney? Guardians of the Galaxy. The Disney approved the Guardians being used because no one wants to mess with the evil mouse.
Oh, at all. Hey, Disney is starting to remind me of the South Park's version of Mickey Mouse. Disney is gangster.
So what teams are next?
Hey, as long as they got the money and billions to do with it, they're gonna do whatever they want, man.
Exactly.
But to go to that, what is next? Like, right. I grew up a Braves fan. Is that next? The Kansas City Chiefs? What's next?
Ooh.
Florida State Seminoles. You know they're gonna attack them eventually.
Oh.
I mean, let's be honest. You broke down. You gave everybody what they wanted. Now it's going to keep going, and before you know it, you're going to get the Washington Sentinels, quarterbacked by Shane Falco, and that's going to be your NFL team.
I will say this.
They were more entertaining.
I'm a huge hockey fan. Anybody who watches the Sports Angle knows it's my first love. The Chicago Blackhawks, their logo is actually a tribute. But we all know how this culture is. They don't care if it's a tribute. I mean, heck, the Cleveland Indians logo and its name itself was a tribute to a player who played for Cleveland.
Sure was. We brought that up. Earlier today. By the way, you want to hear some more sports talk? Check out, of course, the Sports Angle with Rocco Monday through Fridays. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, wouldn't it be, Rocco?
8 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern.
Outstanding. And then we got Voice Corp Sports, 10 o'clock p.m. or 10 o'clock a.m. I'm sorry, Eastern Standard Time. Go to voicecorp.org to listen right live. And we said this on Voice Corp, how I'm not really sure how they got away with that, considering that the Chief Wahoo and the Cleveland Indians nickname was actually a tribute to a player. I think it was Lucky Wahoo.
He was one of their. It was an African American baseball player who played for Cleveland.
Yep, and I'm like, how did they get away with this, man? It's. I'll tell you, and with all this name stuff, I think we've gone way too far with the whole political correctness of everything. I mean, that's a whole nother topic. We'll probably discuss that on next Devil's Advocate. But Yeah.
And that's a devil's advocate topic.
Right. But yes, I said it. We talked about the Kansas City Chiefs, and they were talking about, well, it could be the chief of police. I'm like, come on. They have Arrowhead Stadium. And Arrowhead is a part of their logo. The same thing with the Florida Seminoles and everybody else. So they have, this is a part of it. And are we really, who are we kidding here? Is my question.
But I guess the question we really have to talk about, if we're going to dig deeper, is how far are they going to go? The USC Trojans with their logo and with the guy that plants the sword at USC Stadium. If anybody's ever gone to a USC game, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Are they going to attack them? How about the Patriots? Are they going to attack the Patriots because all of a sudden it's not correct? Like, I'm just saying, like, how far are they going to go? Because
the Buccaneers, because they're not friendly pirates.
Right.
Well,
to me, it's just it's absurd.
Well, hell, they've already taken off all the names of the cereal, or all the characters off the cereal boxes. So I guess why not? I mean,
R.I.P. Blueberry.
Right. I've been seeing the Lucky Charms guy, man. I'm like, what? We've really done ourselves in with this whole thing, but hey, whatever. So you think this will be you think there will be a whole lot more name changes in the league from not just the Indian perspective, but almost all the teams? I mean, what?
Oh, with baseball, with football, and with college athletics, absolutely. Like basketball and hockey, like outside of maybe the Chicago Blackhawks, there really isn't any names that come to mind that are immediately offensive. Whereas baseball, football, they've been there for a really long time. So there are certain names that people are going to go, that's offensive. Like, it's ridiculous. But yes, I expect baseball, football, and definitely college athletics to be affected for the next 5 years.
Well, leave it to the powers that really be to try to change it. I can almost guarantee they'll say, oh, well, the Pistons, they're in Detroit, so unless they're going to say the Detroit Ford Pistons, they can't have it because, it's discriminatory against other cars.
Oh, we can't have the Cleveland Browns because Browns is not an accurate color. They'll say something stupid like that.
Yeah, I you know what?
Well, yeah.
I
You're not taking my Browns again. You already did it once.
No kidding, right? and they haven't, up until last year, they ain't been winning since. Needless to say. But that's a whole nother time. That's a whole nother change in the game topic we'll go with. All right, so we've got this. We've got the NIL in college football, and I mean, there's a lot to go on with this one. This
could be a whole show on itself.
Right.
Be honest with you, this part itself.
We've got the NIL, and what's really scary now with the NIL, at first I was all for players, making money to be able to feed themselves and to take care of themselves, and getting paid because, they're branded while they're in school, and I mean, let's face the facts. 2015, when Johnny Manziel won the Heisman Trophy, Texas A&M University made $70 million off of his jersey sales that year alone, and Johnny Manziel didn't see a dime, and I thought that was a little unfair. But now we have a freshman quarterback from Alabama who is set to make about $1 million his first year.
Well, we have to have kind of a separate conversation that wraps around to this conversation. The National Signing Day, the huge enticement of the National Signing Day is this player going to sign for this team? Is this player going to sign with this team? No. That's not what I want to know now. And you might have picked up on what I'm going with here, James. I now want to know, hey, that number one prospect, How much did he sign for? Okay, that number 2 prospect, the best quarterback in the nation coming out of high school, how much did he sign for? I mean, it's been a dirty secret that college football have bagmen that pay high school prospects to come join their team. But now that players are signing NILs, they're getting lucrative contract deals and exclusive deals. I don't want to know where they sign to anymore. I want to know how much money a university or how much money that player is going to get by going to said college. That's what I want to know.
Facts. What you got, James?
Well, and we're starting to see how the NIL has also shifted college football alignment and conferences. Look at what's going on right now. Because with this NIL thing, I don't have a problem with players being paid. But it's like you said, the teams that have the most money, your Notre Dames, your Ohio States, your Alabamas, they'll be able to afford to get those 5-star, 5-caliber players. While your smaller schools, Michigan States, the list goes on as those mid-major kind of Power 5 schools, the Wisconsins, you know what I mean.
Okay.
They don't get as much money, so they can't get 11 5-stars. So, and then you expand the playoffs, super conferences. Super conferences are coming because Oklahoma, Texas jumping. I heard now the SEC's trying to get teams like Ohio State and stuff to jump, to have these super conferences. Yep. More money for the conferences, more money for the players, more money for the universities.
We talked about that earlier, James, but I'm going to play devil's advocate with you, James, for just a second.
Oh,
here
we go.
Here's the deal.
Let me get a cigarette for this.
And you know, this would be, you know, like Rocco's angle. So let's just say if, you know, I'm a 3-star prospect and, you know, I want to go to a school that has 11 or 12 5-star prospects. Of course, I'm not going to that school, and of course, I'm not going to get paid all that money or whatnot. Does that make me want to just go to this college and show the hell out and just play my ass off for an entire 4 years?
Do you have?
I'm sorry.
Or to piggyback off that,
okay.
Or do you go with the team that's going to maybe not get you the most exposure, but the signing bonus is good, like Rocco said. How much did you get up front? What was that car name?
Well, I think I actually might have an idea here.
All right.
There are mid-major schools that do get blue chip prospects. We've seen the Mountain West Conference thanks to Boise State.
Right. When
TCU and Utah and BYU were in the Mountain West Conference, they would get good prospects. But the way they enticed them was not money, or at least we don't know anyway. But it was the fact that on their depth chart, they would open up a starting roster spot and they would start from day one. And as much as some people don't like to admit it, certain high school prospects want to be the man coming onto campus. You know, they want to be the guy putting on that jersey and walking out onto the field and starting day one. So I think that would be the roundabout way to fix that problem. Like, hey, you might not get paid as much as insert school here, but we will give you a starting day roster spot. You're going to start day one, and you will be part of our organization for hopefully the next 4 years.
Yeah, so you think that
with the man?
Yeah, I mean that is one way to look at it, and you know, James, I do think you're right. However, about how it's changing the landscape of college football. So what's gonna you know, all these other big conferences, you know, are gonna start jumping or whatever. And I had an idea. I said, you know what? Let's, you know, since they want to do the NIL, and that's some new age stuff, great. Dewey going ahead and just roll back the time on all of this. Let's put Texas, Oklahoma, and Texas Tech and Baylor back in the old Southwest Conference. And you know,
I will rebuttal that by saying the Southwest Conference back then was great.
Yeah.
The problem is the Southwest Conference now there are so many moving pieces now that I don't know if they could ever recreate the Southwest Conference. I remember how powerful it was. The reason why it disbanded is because Arkansas, SEC, the Big 12 was pretty much 8 of the 10 schools came over from said Southwest Conference. We've heard reports now that if Texas and Oklahoma do indeed jump over to the SEC, the Big 12 will only have 8 teams left. Some people might not know this, but the minimum requirement for a conference to stay alive is to have at least 10 teams in said conference. So if the Big 12 cannot get 2 more teams, they would have to disband. Could you imagine the bidding war that these other conferences would have to get a Texas Tech, to get a Baylor, a Kansas with basketball? Oh, that would be lucrative right there.
Right.
There would be so much
West
bidding
Virginia.
going on. West Virginia, yeah, they would have Iowa State,
TCU.
Kansas, TCU, of course. The bidding war would be insane to get those teams to go over to their conference. Maybe you would see the revival of the American Conference, aka used to be the Big East Conference. Maybe you have 3 of those Big 12 schools jump over to the American, and you have that replace the Big 12 in the Power 5. Could you imagine UCF being a Power 5 school? How about SMU? How about Houston?
I was
How
just
about
thinking,
Cincinnati?
Listen, I was just thinking about SMU too. And speaking of that, you know, with this whole movement in college football now, let's say roll back the time on all of these penalties that have came down, like the Reggie Bush Heisman Trophy, the Reggie Bush Heisman, them taking away his Heisman Trophy, the death penalty for SMU, you know, and Miami universities, and all that, because they were doing something that guess what they wound up doing anyway. You know, we've heard reports of Terrell Pryor asking for his old trophies and banners back from the Tattooed 5. I mean, do you think that the NCAA should just go on ahead and recant those whole penalties?
They won't do it because of their pride, their ego. They won't do it.
Yeah, there's that.
Correct.
There.
And plus, they'll be like, those weren't the rules. The rules now would not affect the prior punishments before the rule would change, and that would come into NCAA's pride. Like, well, you broke the rules when it was a rule.
Okay.
Now it's not a rule, but we can't turn back time and start giving things back. It's participation trophies at that point. They're like, yeah, we know we fucked up, but we want our stuff back.
Right. So
you know what I mean? It's kind of that kind of feeling.
So my question is now, you know, how much power does the NCAA actually have at this point?
It's dwindling.
All right.
Let me give you an analogy. The NCAA is like those sheriffs in those old cowboys and Indians movies. All right, they're like in those westerns. They don't really have that much power. They don't really do much, but they're there to try to enforce the situation. Like, you'll see like the hero, the antagonist, the protagonist, they'll constantly be shooting each other in these western films, and the sheriff is pretty much just standing there like, you shouldn't do that, but I'm not gonna stop.
I mean, that's a heck of an analogy. And you know, I
the NCAA is kind of like that mob that's starting to lose control. Like with the NIL coming in, the NIL is threatening the NCAA's territory. Now we're going to see what happens, because if Texas and Oklahoma jumps, you're talking TV revenue moving too. The Longhorn network being absorbed by the FCC network. Oklahoma has played games on pay-per-view, like legit pay-per-views here. So the NIL is that new mob boss in town, threatening the NCAA. But like, oh, you've done it so long this way. Now we're going to show you there's a new way where everybody's happy.
And that's just with
Players in the round.
Yeah, that's just college football. Remember college basketball. The NCAA has been damaged by the NBA G League. The moment the NBA G League said, hey, if you're a high school senior and you want to play at the NBA 18 years of age, simple. Play for 1 year in the NBA G League, and then at 18, you can declare for the NBA draft. I think we've had, 7 players from this draft alone do that method. It cost the NCAA millions in dollars of revenue because they lost Jalen Green. I think they lost Kuminga. Like, there's more players, obviously, but they lost a lot of money from having those 5-star prospects go, nah, I'm going to play in the NBA G League.
All right. So what do you
Or
think?
go overseas.
Right. There's that. There's always that option. So what do you think this is going to do for, the rivalries of college football? I mean, do you think this is going to actually kill all the rivalries eventually?
I think this might bring back.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Renegade. Go ahead.
No, you think this will just put it in? Yeah, I mean, because we got the Ohio State Michigan, rivalry.
I think this will bring back old ones. You're looking at old rivalries that we haven't seen, like Penn State, West Virginia. You could see some of these old school rivalries coming back that were from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s.
Actually, here's what I propose.
Okay.
Most people don't realize how the schedule is set up. 8 of the 12 games you have to play against your conference opponents. The rest, the other 4, you can be against anybody you choose. Like, anybody you put on the schedule, they will be playing against you.
Okay.
Well, a lot of people also don't remember is that the agreement the NCAA put in 8 years ago, where the SEC and the Sun Belt have an agreement. The Pac-12 and the Mountain West have an agreement. The Big Ten and the MAC Conference have an agreement. They have to play, I think, at least one game. So that's 9 out of the 12 games on the schedule. Now, the rivalries that are not in the conference, you have your Notre Dame's versus USC's, for example. They are an annual rivalry.
Right.
So that's 10 out of 12 games. So, reason why this is such a big deal for Texas and Oklahoma to leave is because obviously they'll try to have the Bedlam rivalry be one of those 2 games. But we all know that Texas and Texas Tech is a big deal.
Yeah.
We know that Texas versus Baylor is a big deal. Texas versus Oklahoma State is even a big deal in the Big 12. So the impact would be when you have really only 2 open slots left, 3 at the max, it's gonna force these teams to make difficult decisions on who they play every year and who they don't play every year.
Agreed.
But to piggyback off that, does that change the way the NCAA does their scheduling? Instead of this 2 to 3 years in advance, does that change the way they do that now?
I believe it would. I believe that they would change it from being a 3-year to where it would be a year-by-year basis.
NFL style rules, because with the playoffs you're looking at seeding, and seeding is strength of schedule as well. So you're going to want to like, you get problems like where Ohio State's supposed to play Oregon. At the time, Oregon was a top 5 team. Now Oregon's not so much a top 5 team. At the time when it was scheduled, it was a good matchup. Now it's not. Strength of schedule, it won't add up now in the new era.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask everyone around the world. Renegade, I'll ask you as well.
All right.
We have heard about the possibility of 16 teams in the ACC, 16 teams in the Big Ten, 16 teams in the Pac-12, and 16 teams in the SEC. But once again, if the Big 12 gets disbanded, those teams are going to have to go somewhere. So, if the playoffs, correct me if I'm wrong, are 16 teams, then wouldn't it be a possibility that we'd be in the same situation we are now, where if you're a mid-major program, if you're a non-Power 5 school, you have a slim to no chance to get into the playoffs because you're going to stack the deck with all 4 of them equaling a good percentage of the possibility of getting in.
Right. You know, I think you would have that problem. We are in that same predicament. And I'll give you an example of that predicament. 2016, Western Michigan, an undefeated 14-0 Western Michigan. No one else in the country was undefeated at that time. But because they were not in a Power 5 school, the highest that they could get in the rankings was 9. And I thought they were cheated. Because the thing is, we asked these mid-major schools to go and win games against top 10. They beat Penn State. You know, at that time was what, a number two team in the country.
Yes.
They beat Penn State and Penn State. You know, I want to say it was the second or third game of the season. I mean, shocked the world.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 examples. These were from the mid 2000s. One of them's close to home. The other one I remember very well. University of Utah in 2008. They went undefeated. They played Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, beat Alabama in said Sugar Bowl. But no, were they among the top 2 teams? Were they recognized as one of the best teams in college football? H to the no. They did not be recognized because Utah at the time was playing in the Mountain West.
Right.
The second example, Appalachian State, 2007. They beat Michigan in one of the biggest upsets in college football history. They only had 1 loss that entire season, and they were relegated to not even a major bowl game. They were just given one of the mid-major bowl games, like the Menachie Car Bowl or one of those, crappy bowl games that no one cares about.
Right.
So
the Little Caesars or something.
Like Little Caesars or, Change My Tire Bowl, whatever. So when it comes to the mid-major programs, I feel like this changes nothing.
Nope.
You expand to 16 teams, but if 64 teams are part of the Power 5, then there is 132 teams. I did the math on this. So if you have 64 of 132 programs, that is a huge pie, a huge slice that is going to be in a deciding factor for those 16 playoff spots. So if you are a Western Michigan, if you're an Appalachian State, if you're someone like Utah State now, well, congratulations, go F yourself. You're not going to get in.
Facts.
I'll even go back further. Boise State.
Yep.
Mid-major was not part of a big conference, went undefeated for years. Oklahoma shocked Oklahoma.
And they're still in the Mountain West. They dominate alongside Utah State.
Let's go back to the
Cincinnati. Last year.
Yes, Cincinnati. Yeah. Or we can go back to the David Carr days.
I mean, let's be honest. The Cincinnati thing, yes. Cincinnati might have went to a bowl game and just got shellacked, in the playoffs. But you know what? The playoffs was supposed to be made to give those teams that shot because the computer system was supposed to be so rigged that those teams didn't have a shot.
But the playoff committee is just as rigged.
Now
they
the
care about the
eyes.
almighty dollar.
Right. Who travels? Who puts butts in seats? Alabama travels heavy. Clemson travels heavy. Ohio State travels heavy. These teams bring fans, so therefore they bring money. Therefore, NCAA gives them what they want.
Facts. And, we all know that it is a money game, and it has been a money game, for a while. So, now that the players
Brian Bosworth exposed them.
Yep. So now that the players are making the money, it's kind of like who's really in control. It was a great analogy that was given earlier today, again on Voice Corp Sports, where they said that could college football wind up being a farm system for the NFL?
It already is.
It technically
without the players being paid.
Okay.
I mean, it kind of was.
Well, I mean, it's now more obvious that the players are getting paid, though. That's my thing.
Which, I see what you're saying now. How many NFL teams will start donating to these colleges?
Who says that they don't do it already?
There's that.
Well, yeah, but now it's out in the open. Dallas Cowboys gave the University of Alabama $50 million.
Oh,
Just donated. What does that donation comes with?
They'll get all the money right next to Ohio State if that's the case. I mean, look at how many players they put in the NFL. I mean, on a regular basis, just like Ohio State.
Well, let me give you this. Who says that next year, let's say Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati is the number 1 pick? Let's just put that out there.
All right.
Who says that a team in the NFL won't pay $40 million or won't pay a sum of money to entice that team to say, hey, go to that team? Because the NFL draft, they're going to need you. You're a marketable player, face of the franchise. We want you to go to that team instead of that team over there. But you got to remember that John Elway, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, there have been countless quarterbacks, Eli Manning, that pretty much refused to go to a team and was just like, nah, we're good. We're going to go someplace else. People forget that Peyton Manning in 1997 saw the Jets were first overall, said nope, and went right back to Tennessee. Andrew Luck in 2011, Carolina Panthers were number 1 overall pick. He was like, I'm out. He went back to Stanford and got selected by Indianapolis the next year. So, I'm just saying that these schools could be enticed and could be pretty much manipulated and pretty much corrupted into, hey, you're the number 1 overall pick. We want you to go to that team now instead of the number 1 overall pick.
Right. James, we got about a minute 30. What you got?
I agree with it. It's a way. So now players are openly being paid. Before, college football players were getting in trouble with no money. Now you're going to give a 21-year-old kid $1 million in the heart of campus and partying, and when you can get your hands on anything if you have money, let's be honest.
Right.
What's the odds that these athletes now get in trouble even more now that there's money? So does this start showing corruption higher in the universities? Like, oh, well, the school president slipped the police chief a couple of grand and my player didn't get arrested. Check the reports.
Hey, you know what? We've opened Pandora's box with the whole idea of paying these players. And it's a crapshoot because I do agree with Chris Webber and what he said when he was like, man, these universities are making all this money off of my jersey right now and I don't see a dime of it. Yet I can't even ask somebody to, give me a couple dollars just so I can get a sandwich. I agree with that. So with that being said, guys, listen, we got about 2 minutes. Any last words? Mr. Rocco, what you got?
Check out the Sports Angle Monday to Friday every single day at 8 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Mountain, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern. And go to our website, thesportsangle.com. We have all the articles, audio, video, live streams. Sportsangle.com.
And for the fans, it's
hey,
a great show.
Where'd you get this guy?
Oh, man.
Where'd you get this guy? He's professional.
Oh, man.
He's professional.
Yeah. Listen, I've been on the Sports Angle, and I'll tell you what, man, we had a heck of a conversation. I think it was about the NBA playoffs. It
was NBA playoffs. Me and you have talked back and forth over the last couple of weeks. It's been fun.
Yeah. Let's see, what you got, James?
I'm not as professional as this guy here. I don't have a bunch of things to plug, but do tune in next Saturday for Changing the Game.
Absolutely.
Because we have a lot more NFL stuff. We have
Major
a
League
lot
Baseball,
more stuff still around the bend.
Listen, the Major League Baseball, the division races are starting to really heat up, especially in the AL Central with my Tigers. They're playing some great ball right now. I just had to throw that in there.
Ohtani fever still.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ohtani fever still.
35 home runs. And listen, the guy's for real. Me and you had talked about Ohtani. You said that he might lose a little steam. I think he's gained it, especially after the All-Star.
Second best player in baseball. Second best.
Oh, my. Yeah. You know what? You need to come back for that one. That's gonna be a good one because I think I know who you're gonna say, but we'll say that for another time, another show. But listen, hey, great show, guys. Thanks for tuning in. This is No Filter. If you want to check out some more of our content, we've got numerous shows. We got Devil's Advocate. We still got the Shit Show that comes out. We still got what else we got, James? Man, I got a lot of shows. We got a lot of shows around here. Anyway,
I don't know. I can't keep track of your schedule at this point when it comes to shows. You just tell me where I got to be.
Right, and that's kind of how that goes. But anyway, go to www.nofilterproductionsllc.com. Check us out. You're watching this. You're watching, or you have watched. This is Changing the Game with your host, the Renegade, and we got our guest Rocco from the Sports Angle, and we got Mr. James, the co-host. Hey, you guys have been great. To all the 2,500 fans that we have that actually follow us, thank you guys so much. We are now seen in 10 countries. Shout out to Taiwan. Taiwan's giving us another 10 fans. Hey, it may not be a lot, but it's better than nothing. We're now seen in 10 different countries. Thank you guys. You guys have been great. And we are out of here.